We have seen in the previous lesson how we could use light and dark exposures to correct an image. Now let's look at how these exposures can be used as a creative tool. With the camera locked down on its monostand, we have set up a still life of toys. In the first exposure, we've used a top light that has evenly illuminated the image from the top, and we can shoot this either normal or diffused. The basis of this is to do a darker exposure that's 2 to 3 stops darker than normal. On the second exposure, we've moved the light around to the side and created a little more dimension with the lighting. This gives us our depth, and we're going to use this second image to paint on top of the first image. Let's go ahead and close these two images off and take a look at the photographs. The first image has a heavy diffusion on it, and it is about 2.5 stops darker than normal. The brighter image gives us a lot more information, and we're going to paint all the highlight and shadow information into the dark diffused image to give us a very, very moody picture. I'm going to start by making sure that I'm in the Move tool, key letter V, and by holding the Shift key, I can drag the brighter image into the darker image and let it go, and it perfectly registers itself into the image. I'm going to close this image off, so we just work with this larger image here. I'm now going to add a new layer mask while holding the Option key, Alt on the PC, to this top layer to give it a black layer mask hiding this image. You can see now that we're on the mask. Here we're on the layer itself with the paintbrush showing. We're actually on the mask, and we're going to paint with white on this layer mask to reveal the layer onto the dark diffused image. Making sure that I'm painting with white, I'm going to go ahead and grab the paintbrush, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit bigger brush. I'm going to use the airbrush feature. I'm going to have it flow set to 10%. And this is a good time to use a pressure sensitive tablet. I'm using a Wacom tablet and pen to actually go in and start painting the image in some of the areas back in. And I'll go ahead and just give it a couple of big streaks just to give it some directional light. And I like to keep the opacity to 100%, but the flow very, very low so I can paint very, very slowly and build the image up. I'm going around. I'm going to go ahead now and use a smaller brush and start painting a little detail around edges. I can paint each of these little marbles in, and wherever I'm painting with white, I'm revealing the brighter image on top of the darker image. If I paint an area that I don't like, I hit the X key to reverse the colors, and now I can paint with black to remove the top image. I'll hit the X key again to go back to white. Start painting in some of the areas, little highlights in here. I like to see just some of the edges to show, and not going to fill in too much, but I know that I have the information there. If I need a little information, I can paint that in anywhere I need it to. I'll go ahead and just paint a few places down here. I'm pressing very lightly with the pressure sensitive pen as I paint across the image. As I go around, I can see some areas that have been overpainted. I'm going to go in with my X key and start removing a little bit of the overpainting, the overlighting, so to speak. I need to go back to my X key, back to white, add a little more light in here. I'm going to go ahead and make a bigger brush and just put a few small streaks of light just to kind of even up the lighting of the base image. Now if I need to take a look at how this information is working on the mask, I can hold the Option key, Alt on the PC, and click the mask, and I can visually see the mask and see the areas that need more work. Some areas might be a little jumpy or a little broken up. In this case, everything looks pretty good. I'm going to Option key and click it again. Now if I hold the Shift key, it disables it. You can see I put an X through the mask. It's disabled. I can see how the original image looked, and I can see what it looks like with the mask. So you can see we're building up this information. If I want to go ahead and turn off the bottom layer, I can paint a little bit still, keeping the top layer mask active. I can go in here and just paint very slowly in some of the areas and build up the information little more solidly right where I need it. Here, a little bit more in here. I'll go ahead and turn on the bottom layer again. This is starting to look pretty good. Okay, once I have this finished, I make sure that I save it with my layers. Using this technique is a great way of creating depth with lighting and applying exposure to an image in areas that would be impossible to do with traditional lighting.